A lot of people think that career advice is about doing the right thing, networking, resume, stuff like that. The most important thing that will hold you back in your career is yourself. I'm not like my dad who wakes up and makes all the right choices and grinds. I'm weak on the inside. Does that mean I'm screwed? We're sold on the promise of a career and then find ourselves like in a dead-end job with no way of getting out of this mess. So like things are becoming really difficult. I went to a career counselor. I feel weak within me. I destroyed my career by not doing what I wanted. Okay, tell me more about it. I've been a person who posted various memes and shit posts here. Thank you so much. And you guys were awesome to reply to my weird memes. Thanks for your support. I went to a career counselor and he helped me figure out my future options. He also understood and praised me to go through my mental fatigue, or should I say my mental construct. So interesting. He told me about my sensitivity, and I know that I'm aware. The last thing I realized going to him, I hate myself for not being my father. Let me explain. My father is someone who you will consider an ideal caretaker, knows everything, deals with everything, and suffers and protects. That's all good, and I want to be like him. The problem is I feel weak. His choice of career, his choice on dealing with life, with problems are really effective, strong, and willpower, endurance focused. I feel weak. I feel incompetent in my choices. I feel like I'm just being ragdolled by life. While he and my other siblings choose what they do because they are strong and they move ahead. I don't know whether he feels the same. I will say this version of him is a projection of judgment of my mind onto my choices because he is really loving and wants me to progress anyhow, no pressure. I know I can't remove sensitivity or anything, but at least I don't want to feel ashamed of myself every time. I feel once I really grind on my career, as I've already lost it, but if I make it good, then maybe I won't be ashamed and me a strong person in myself. But I don't know whether it will help or not. It's not about father or family. It's about feeling weak from within, all the choices, all the reactions, not wanting to be in this world and everything. Okay, so if you're someone who struggles with your career because you are not good enough, right? Because there are other people out there who wake up and they love the grind set. Like, I'm a grind, I'm gonna do good, I'm gonna do great, it's gonna be awesome. I wake up and I feel like working. Like, that's just not me. I'm weak. I'm not like these people. See, we have this idea that there are certain things, certain qualities that make us successful in careers. And we have lots of like scientific research to back this up. So I love this paper, right? So if you're struggling with your career, we have papers like this: personality traits and career satisfaction of healthcare professionals. Okay. 2 traits that were particularly strong among healthcare workers were also significantly correlated with career satisfaction: work drive and conscientiousness. So we have a lot of research that tells us that if you want to be successful in your career, there are certain personality traits. Like, you have to be conscientious. What does conscientiousness mean? It means that when you have a goal, you work consistently towards it. You have to be a hard worker. That's what it takes to be successful. Now, the problem is many of us, myself included, were born with low conscientiousness. So what happens if you don't have the traits that are necessary for succeeding in a career? Because there's all this research about like people who work hard and people who wake up every day and are grinding. They're the ones that are successful. I'm not like them. I'm a weak person. I'm not like my dad who wakes up and makes all the right choices and grinds. I'm weak on the inside. Does that mean I'm screwed? And that's where thankfully the answer is no. And there's more research that we can get into because I've worked with a ton of people who are lazy like I am. And we discover ways for them to succeed in their careers, especially in the world that we live in right now, where things are hard, jobs are being replaced by AI, people are getting underpaid. We're sold on the promise of a career and then find ourselves like in a dead-end job with no way of getting out of this mess. So like things are becoming really difficult. And so part of the reason that we started this career coaching program, we have a career coaching program at HG, and we started it. And the reason that we're successful with it is because we discovered something really important. A lot of people think that career advice is about doing the right thing, networking, resume, stuff like that. The most important thing that will hold you back in your career is yourself. The way that you deal with your internal self. What judgments do you make about yourself? What are your hang-ups? What are the things that you're trying to prove to everybody around you that causes you to choose things? In my case, it was, I'm going to be a doctor because doctors are great and they get respect. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be the best doctor. I'm going to go to Harvard, and then I will walk into the room and I will be the sexiest MF in the room. Everyone will be like, wow, Look at that guy. He went to Harvard. And what did I end up doing? Promptly ended up fucking failing a bunch of classes because everything was ego-driven. If you want to succeed in your career, you have to understand yourself. So here's what I mean by that. So we live in a weird society right now because success in your career, let's say, used to be 50% internal and 50% external. Like this person said, it comes down to luck, circumstances, connections, right? So success in a career, you got to work on yourself and you got to work the system. So there's something weird going on right now, which is that the world is getting worse, which means that the external forces that are determining your career success are actually growing. Like the economy sucks, okay? There's inflation, there's AI, there's all kinds of problems. So what I'm noticing for the people that we work with is that the world is getting harder to succeed in. Do you agree or you disagree? Okay, what do y'all think? So if the world is getting to be a harder place, there is less you can do about it, okay? Right? Because things are just so hard, like it's so challenging. There's less you can do about it. So here's the really crazy thing. The less you can do about it, the more important it is to do. So interestingly enough, I think you guys should be investing more over here because this is really the only thing that you can control. This is the real thing that you can optimize. When the world is stacked against you, you need to be 100%. Like you can't afford to be anything less than 100% internally. This needs to be optimized to 100% because this certainly ain't working in your favor. So interestingly enough, the harder that the external world has become, the more important it is to fix yourself. Now, that may sound once again insane, but let me show you all the converse. Let's say that I'm alive in the 60s. So in the 60s, the path to success is go to college, do a bunch of psychedelics, waltz into an investment bank, get a job before everything became so optimized and financially like scary or whatever, right? I could buy a house for like $65,000 a year, support a family of 4 here in the United States with a single income with like maybe a bachelor's degree, and it was like totally fine. I'd get promoted because everything's easy. When the world used to be easier, people didn't have to internally work on themselves. They could just fucking slide into a successful job. They could fall into a successful job, which is why we get such terrible advice from some boomers. The boomers are like, just put yourself out there. They didn't need to do any of this silly emotional work and understanding yourself and all this like stuff that these youngins do nowadays. You don't need to do any of that. In my day, we had to walk 6 miles in the snow, and then we graduated from college and we landed ourselves a vice presidential job at an electrical engineering company. That's just how it worked back in the day. You just apply yourself. You just show up. You show that you have some grit by showing up, and then you show up, and then you show up, and people just give you piles of money. That's all it took. Kids nowadays don't know how to show up. That's their problem. Changing your life isn't easy. When I was flunking out of college, I had to travel all the way to an ashram in India to begin a 7-year journey to put my life back together. Unfortunately, that option isn't available to everyone. That's why I've taken most of what I've learned, distilled it into the most important points, not just from India, but also my years of training as a psychiatrist, into our coaching program. Coaches will help you set appropriate goals, maintain motivation, and hold you accountable. Thousands of people from all over the world have tried HG coaching and have seen sustained improvements in purpose and direction in life, and even reductions in feelings of depression and anxiety. So if you're interested in putting your life together but don't have 7 years to wander around India, definitely check out HG Coaching. So back in their day, you didn't have to do a whole lot of self-work because the world was like easier, right? And I think we have good objective indicators of this. Things like first, the housing price index compared to median income, the value of a degree, how much a degree improves your earning power. There's so many strong economic indicators that this is not just someone catering to the millennials and Gen Z, like I'm trying to like get views and like, click and subscribe or whatever the fuck people on YouTube say. Like this is real. That's just how it worked back then. So interestingly enough, the easier the world is, the less you have to do, right? And this is where it's like, when I'm playing the tutorial of a video game, I don't need to have all of my moves polished because what I'm up against is not difficult. And now the problem is that the world that we're up against is very difficult, is stacked against us. This is why it is incredibly important that you optimize yourself, because the world certainly ain't coming banging down your door and being like, oh, please please come to our AI startup and we will pay you. I'm Meta and we are going to pay $1 billion to AI engineers. Please come and work with us and we'll pay you $100 million a year. Please, sir, come. Please. No one's doing that, right? Meta's doing it with AI engineers, but you have to be one of those people in order to get that. And I hear that they're also scaling back. You guys get what I'm saying? So question becomes, how do you work on yourself, right? What do you do? Now, here's the big problem is that most of the advice that we get is like kind of generic. It assumes a certain kind of personality. And this is why I love being alive today, because we have this cool thing called science. And if we look at science, science will give us answers about how to succeed in the career place. And I've seen this when I do my own coaching with my clients and in the patients I've worked with. We're going to go, now things are going to get a bit technical. Okay, so strap yourselves in. I'm going to make it as accessible as possible. The main research aim was to explore at a detailed level relationships between enduring personal characteristics and a resilient approach to work and career. Very similar to this other paper, but they dug deeper. And when you dig deeper, you discover something really interesting. Okay, in order to have a positive career experience and success, you need a resilient approach to work and career. Duh. Be resilient, then you will succeed. But what does this mean? This means that there are situational influences. Great. We talked about this, right? These are external circumstances, how lucky you are. And there are stable attributes. These two things, there's internal stuff, there's external stuff. If you develop it in the right way, you will be resilient, and then that'll lead to success. So now let's dig a little bit deeper. What does resilience actually mean? So these are the 4 things that lead to being resilient. Organization and career satisfaction, how satisfied you are with the organization that you work for, and how satisfied you are with your career, how involved you are, job satisfaction and workplace pressure, how much pressure you're under, and career planning. Now, here's the really cool thing. They looked at various personality attributes like neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, critical thinking, conscientiousness. We look at this paper. This paper says conscientiousness good, everything else bad. This paper goes a little bit deeper. Okay, so now this is what's really, really, really cool. Okay, results for regression of organization and career satisfaction. This is that first box, okay? This is this box over here. So now what this study is basically looking at is how do these things affect these 4 boxes. And now we're going to discover something really cool. One of these is not better than all of the others. All of these are useful if you know how to use them properly. And that's what the study showed. If you're neurotic and not conscientious, that's actually okay. You just need to play to your strengths. Organization and career satisfaction indicated that age was a significant predictor. So lesson number 1 we need to learn. If you are unhappy in your career and you are 24 years old or 22 years old or 31 years old, as you give it more time, your satisfaction will improve. But that's not something that's actionable. It just means don't lose hope, okay? So assertiveness. So how assertive you are. Aesthetic appreciation negatively correlates. Straightforwardness, don't mess around. And impulsiveness, okay? So even being impulsive can lead to career satisfaction. So career and job involvement involve that achievement, striving, significantly predicted career and job involvement. This makes a lot of sense, right? So achievement, striving. So trying to be good, okay? As did openness to ideas, being open-minded. So this is cool, y'all. I want to just pause for a second and really help y'all. I want this to sink in. This isn't just the hardest working people. What this means is that there are certain attributes like being open-minded, being impulsive. Both of these things have actually been shown to improve resilience when they are used in the right way. Okay, let's keep going. Regression for job satisfaction and workplace pressure. Hostility significantly predicted, job satisfaction and workplace pressure in the negative. This is a negative number, so more hostile means less things. And here's the other really interesting thing, not surprising at all. The more imaginative you are, the less likely you are to be satisfied with your job, right? Because it's like, hey, we could be doing it so many different ways. I'm not a bot. I can think of a better way to do it. Now, here's what's really interesting. Career planning, age significantly predicted career planning. Achievement striving predicted it. Straightforwardness doesn't predict it, which is interesting. Openness to ideas predicts it in a positive way here. Imagination, less so. Okay? So, what does this mean? I know this is a bit complicated. I'm going to try to simplify it for y'all. So if you're struggling to find success in your career, there are a couple things you need to understand. There's external stuff that you can do. You can network, you can work on your resume, all that kind of stuff. What we found in career coaching, which is probably our most successful program to date, it started off pretty slow. All the spots didn't fill up when we got it 3 or 4 years ago, but every year we're adding more and more spots because the demand for it is huge and it works really well. And what we learned is that, first of all, you have to work on yourself, your own internal issues. As you get better as a human being, your career progress will improve, especially in today's world. Today's world is one that will take advantage of you. Today's world is one that will mismeasure you, will measure you, will say that we're going to give you a promotion and then not give you a promotion, where you're trying to make your boss happy, your boss is taking advantage of you. It sucks out there. So you need to be internally strong. Now, what I've seen as a psychiatrist is that there are some things which, if you have, like if you're a hardworking person, that may lead to career success. But in today's world, if you're a hardworking person, that may lead you to just get taken advantage of. I see this. I had a patient who worked in investment banking. And this patient was a superstar. So interestingly enough, went to a community college, didn't go to a super fancy college, worked really hard, was in the military, went to college afterward, finished at a community college, did an interview at an investment bank, like a mid-tier investment bank, and absolutely knocked it out of the park and did really, really well. Was hardworking, ended up moving to a different investment bank, ended up moving to a third investment bank. That happens in investment banking. And so he was at a top-tier investment bank, one of the best out there, does billion-dollar deals with huge companies that y'all have heard of. And so as he started to work harder and harder and harder, he started to run into problems because his boss realized he's a workhorse. And as long as this person is underneath me and doing my work, I will get a lot of reward. And one day he even took him aside and he said, "You're going to make me a lot of money on this deal." That's like literally what his boss told him, like to his face. Can y'all imagine that? So we say conscientiousness works. It does, but only up until a point. All of your personality attributes, whether you're neurotic, whether you're conscientiousness, it doesn't matter. These can help you or hurt you. You have to understand the hand that you're dealt. Being dealt a 2 of hearts and a 4 of hearts in Texas Hold'em poker is actually not a bad hand. It's a 2 and a 4. They're weird, but you've got flush opportunities. You've got straight opportunities. There's all kinds of stuff going on there, right? You just have to know. It's not as simple as these attributes are successful, these attributes are not successful. So we talked a little bit about how conscientiousness and a tendency towards hard work can actually get you in trouble. I've had plenty of patients who work really hard and just get taken advantage of, do plenty of work that is not compensated or appreciated. They do a lot of extra, burn themselves out. So if you're someone who works really, really, really hard, what I want you to think about, ask yourself one question: what is the ROI of my effort? What is the return on my investment? What do I get when I work hard? How much of this is truly appreciated? Another one that people have a lot of trouble with, neuroticism. So we tend to think about neuroticism, which is the tendency to see problems as a negative characteristic. So people who are high on neuroticism have more anxiety, they have more paranoia, life is harder. But neuroticism is very important for predicting problems. So people who end up as doctors they're high on neuroticism and they're high on conscientiousness. So when I am afraid I'm going to fail, even when I've studied so much and I sit at home on a Friday night and I study extra because I'm paranoid and I'm anxious that I'm going to fail, that's who ends up with a 4.0 GPA. Instead of partying with my friends, I'm sitting at home studying even though I studied enough. So the key thing about neuroticism is you need some degree of emotional regulation to not let the neuroticism take control of you. So the way that you should treat it is, this is my mind telling me that there are particular problems that I could encounter. Let me think about what those problems are. Let me make a plan to deal with those problems. I'm going to do that stuff and then I am done. That is what healthy neuroticism looks like. It's considering problems and then implementing plans to fix them. And then sometimes it gets to be a bit too much, but oftentimes what happens is that's not how we deal with neuroticism. We try to shut it down, we try to distract it, etc. Now, agreeableness is another really, really interesting one. So this is a good example of something that is both good and bad. It is not like good, it's both, depending on how you use it. So people who are highly agreeable are likely to agree with other people. So it's like, okay, if you want to do it that way, that's totally fine with me. So agreeableness is one of these things that if you're too agreeable, you'll get taken advantage of. And if you're not agreeable enough, people will dislike working with you. So it's really about understanding what are the ways that you are not agreeable, and then thinking about how can I implement these kinds of things in a positive way. So I'll give you all an example. If you don't like the way that your manager does something, totally makes sense, right? They're doing something wrong. You have to be a little bit careful about it. But oftentimes, companies reward people who want to improve things. So just because you don't want to do it your manager's way, there's a certain amount of skill set to voicing your concerns. You always want to tie things back to ROI. So if you're advocating for change in a system, this is where I see so many like posts on the internet and things like that, and people complaining in real life. Stuff at my job sucks. And I tried to tell them it sucks, and then I got fired for it. My manager is power tripping, has ego issues, but what they're doing is terrible. And that's where, depending on how you do it, there's a certain finesse. This is something that can get you punished or something that can get you rewarded. So if you see a problem at work, first of all, tie things to ROI. Don't blame people for it. Don't get angry about it. Go to your boss and say, hey, I noticed that you do things a certain way. Would you be open to talking about a slight change? I had a thought. So be deferential, right? I had a thought. What do you think about it, right? So this is where, like, oftentimes we get really, really bent out of shape and we want to do things a particular way. And then we go to people and we're like, ah. And that's what happens with low agreeableness. With low agreeableness, you have no patience for other people's idiocy. And so you have to learn how to tone that down a little bit. But that low agreeableness is giving you a path towards improving things at the workplace. That's what's beautiful about it, okay? Conscientiousness, we talked about. Neuroticism, we talked about. Agreeableness, we talked about. This is what's really cool. Extroversion and openness, okay? So first thing is, openness is super cool. So I don't know if y'all remember, but openness, for some of these factors, it improved things. For some of these factors, I think it may have made them worse. That's really important to understand. So openness is being open to new things, being open to thinking about things differently, receiving new information, trying things differently. And generally speaking, when we're more open, we tend to be happier. So if you're someone who has super low openness, you should really think about, okay, how can I see this differently? Really work on your cognitive flexibility. My mind is producing things in this particular way. How can I think about it differently? And generally speaking, the more open we are, the more flexible we are, the more satisfied we will be with our job. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that your job is better or worse. It is just, I don't know if this makes sense. People who are open are willing to consider perspectives that are not their own. And what I see as a psychiatrist is when people get really stuck in their own heads, oh, this is the way that my work is, and this is the way that my job is, and it's terrible, and it's terrible, and it's terrible. They don't have any flexibility around that, and they just suffer as a result. So people who are low openness tend to suffer a lot because they can't, once they get a bad taste in their mouth or the bad thought in their head, they have a lot of difficulty getting out of it. Last one is extroversion. So this is where another one of those things where a lot of papers will say the more extroverted you are, the more successful you will be in the workplace. That is both true and untrue. So there are some studies that work at a very high level will say extroversion is good in the workplace. Generally speaking, that's true because what matters in the workplace is not that you're an extrovert, is that you form relationships. And extroverts are like social butterflies. They like to come over here and they like to talk to you for 5 minutes and then go over there and talk over there for 5 minutes. I'm seeing a lot of this, especially with extroverted managers who are advocating for return to office after remote work because they hate being on Zoom. They don't get the extrovert energy that they really, really, really love. Now, here's the key thing to understand. Relationships are important to advance at work, but you don't need to be an extrovert to have a relationship. In fact, oftentimes introverts love relationships. Introverts love 3 hours with one person where we're diving deep into one particular topic. It's not that you have to be an extrovert. It is that even an introverted relationship, I think the best networking that happens between introverts. And the kind of stuff that a lot of people are terrified of if you're an introvert is exactly what we excel at. Like the boss wants to play a round of golf, you should absolutely go with them. I mean, if you can't play golf, it's a different story. But that one-on-one time, which can be intimidating at first, that's where introverts actually shine. It's not that we want to be isolated. It's that we get sensory stimulus overload. So when we're at a party, we hate it. When we're at a mixer, we hate it, right? So this is something that I find is very helpful. So you have some mixer. We've got some extrovert who's like, ha, ha, ha. Oh man, like that's so funny. Like we're going to do karaoke and like, oh, and you're like, oh my God, not this shit again. I don't want to do karaoke, right? So you can do something really cool. After the party's over, next day, go talk to your boss and be like, hey, It was cool going to the party. We didn't really get a chance to talk very much. I was wondering if you wanted to grab coffee sometime. I'd love to just catch up. Create introverted experiences. Me, you, one person, form a tight relationship with these people. And you will find that when you engage with someone, that can be a little bit tricky because there's also social anxiety and shyness that are technically different from introversion. So you have to overcome some of that stuff. But introverts can absolutely excel in the workplace. I oftentimes find that the most introverted people, so a really good example of this is like Tyrion Lannister. If you guys have seen Game of Thrones, read Game of Thrones, Tyrion is an introvert, but he's very good at forming one-on-one relationships and having meaningful interactions, right? So really good example of this is like if you guys watch, I think Game of Thrones illustrated this well. If you look at Tyrion Lannister's relationship with Jon Snow, look at how that develops. It's like pure introvert artwork. So how do you take advantage of all of these attributes? What do you practically do with this? So there are a couple of things that I think are very important. The first is planning. When I work with people who do not do well in their careers, they don't plan. So if you take all the people who are like successful and in med school and investment banking and stuff, there's one attribute that many of them share, which is that they plan. This is the stuff that you can do, right? So someone decides to be pre-med at the age of 15. They do a lot of volunteer work, then they go to college, they major in pre-med, they get into a good college. Because they did a lot of work in high school, they plan ahead. And then they go to med school. They plan, they think about what's the next step. So oftentimes when I'm working with people who feel like they're stuck in dead-end jobs, that's because they're not thinking about I feel like I'm stuck over here, but what are my options? What comes next? Even a dead-end job is work experience for another job. This job may have no upward mobility, but other jobs may have upward mobility. If I work for 2 years over here and I become maybe assistant manager, but don't rise above that, maybe I can become a full manager somewhere else. Maybe I can become an assistant manager somewhere else. So practically what I do with people is to ask yourself, okay, for whatever your situation is now, what does one step forward look like? If that step doesn't work, what's plan B? What's plan C? So I did this exercise with someone on stream many years ago. It's one that I love a lot, which is take your dream job and reverse engineer it. So I was talking to someone who was saying, I want to be a developer at Riot Games. And so we looked at the job description for a developer of Riot Games. That is a path. It is not an obstacle. I have to do this, 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 I have to do this. That is your to-do list for the next 5 to 7 years. Absolutely doable. Now, if you do those things, will you end up at Riot? Who the hell knows, right? Some of that is luck. Some of that is external. Some of that is circumstance. So to really think about, okay, what comes next? That's the most important question you can ask yourself. What's next? What's next? What's next? Second thing, this is one that y'all are going to hate me for, critical thinking. Most of y'all don't know how to do critical thinking. Most of us. Very few human beings get trained in critical thinking, okay? We think that we think critically, but we don't. There's a guy who won a Nobel Prize in economics named Daniel Kahneman, who basically showed us that most human beings on the planet don't know how to critically think. It's not a diss. I don't critically think half the time anyway. So I'm going to tell you all what critical thinking actually is. So in medical school, they teach us critical thinking. And the reason they teach us critical thinking is because if we don't learn critical thinking, then patients have problems. So what does critical thinking mean? The way that the mind usually works is when I see a situation, my mind gives me an answer. It just floats up an answer. And I believe that the answer was thought through critically, but that's not usually what happens. So in medicine, we get trained in something called differential diagnosis. And differential diagnosis is really simple, but it's hard to do. It's actually very hard to do, which is when you see a patient, all of your medical training is going to tell you this patient has this problem. Oh, this kid comes in, looks like the flu is going around, seems like they've got the flu. Oh, the flu test is negative, but flu tests are negative 30% of the time. So maybe they're the 1 out of 3 people that has a negative flu test. They've got the flu. That's when patients run into trouble. We have to do something called differential diagnosis. It could be the flu, could be COVID, could be myeloma, could be an occult cancer, could be an autoimmune disease, could be a mold allergy, could be all kinds of things. So we have to train ourselves to consider all of the things that we did not think about. That is what critical thinking really is. So there's one really difficult and useful exercise for critical thinking as it relates to career. Write a page about your career situation, why you are the way in the place that you are. What are the factors that have led you to this career situation, right? So where are you and how did you get here? Then what we're going to do is be critical of that. What critical means is whatever you think, you need to learn how to think the opposite. You need to be able to steel man the argument that opposes whatever you believe. Most people are not capable of this. I don't have a job because the economy sucks. It is true that you do not have a job. It is true that the economy sucks. It is true that we are in end-stage capitalism. Fine. And a lot of people still have jobs. That is what it means to be critical of your thinking. And literally, this is what we try to do in coaching and in therapy and things like that, right? Patients will come in, if I'm a psychiatrist, a patient will come in and they will think about their life in a particular way. And they have a lot of great data to support their beliefs. That is not what critical thinking is. Critical thinking is thinking in a way that is critical of what you believe and all the reasons that you believe it. It's very hard to do, to pick apart, to genuinely pick apart your beliefs. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.